The wolf pup's blood pooled dark against the forest moss, his small chest barely rising with each shallow breath. Elara's hands trembled as she knelt beside him, every instinct screaming at her to run. She'd sworn never to use her magic again, not after what it had cost her. But those golden eyes, glazed with pain, held something she couldn't ignore, a desperate, innocent plea. "Please don't make me do this," she whispered, though no one was there to hear. The forest had been her refuge for 2 years, her punishment and her protection. The pack elders had been clear. Exile meant silence, meant burying the light that had once made her their greatest healer. Lumina magic, they'd called it, dangerous, unpredictable, a threat to the natural order. They'd stripped her of her title, her home, her family, and sent her into these woods with nothing but fear and shame. The pup whimpered, a sound so small it broke something inside her chest. His fur was matted with dirt and dried blood, a gash across his side revealing broken ribs. He couldn't have been more than 3 months old. What was a wolf pup doing this deep in the forest, this far from pack lands? If you're enjoying this story so far, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you won't want to miss this journey. Elara closed her eyes, feeling the familiar warmth building in her palms. She tried so hard to forget this sensation, the way her magic felt like sunlight condensed into liquid gold, how it sang through her veins with purpose. Her fingers hovered over the pup's wound, and she made her choice. Exile or not, she couldn't let innocence die at her feet. Light erupted from her hands, brilliant and warm, flooding the darkening forest with radiance. The pup's body arched, then relaxed as golden threads wove through torn flesh, knitting muscle and bone. Elara poured everything into the healing, feeling the drain on her own energy as the magic worked its ancient art. The connection formed instantly, something she'd experienced only twice before, a soul-deep bond that linked healer to patient, a bridge of light and life that transcended mere medicine. When the glow finally faded, the pup's breathing had steadied. His wound had closed, leaving only a faint silver scar beneath his copper fur. His eyes, now clear and bright, fixed on her with recognition and trust. Elara slumped back against a tree, exhausted but relieved. She'd done it. She'd broken her exile, shattered her own promise, but she'd saved a life. "What am I going to do with you?" she murmured, reaching out to stroke his soft head. The pup, she'd decided to call him Lero after the constellation her mother had loved, nuzzled into her palm with surprising strength. For 3 days, Lero stayed with her in the cottage. He followed her everywhere, his small paws padding after her as she gathered herbs and tended her garden. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing hour, a warmth in her chest that reminded her of everything she'd lost. He was healing remarkably well, his energy returning in bounds and leaps. Soon he'd be strong enough to return to wherever he'd come from, and she'd be alone again. On the 4th morning, Elara woke to Lero's low growl. He stood at the cottage door, hackles raised, staring into the forest beyond. Her heart hammered as she moved to the window, peering through the gap in the curtains. 3 wolves stood at the edge of her clearing, their forms massive and imposing. The one in front was the largest she'd ever seen, his fur black as midnight, with silver markings that seemed to shimmer in the dawn light. She knew that pattern. Everyone in the territories knew those markings. Kalen, the wolf prince, heir to the northern packs and guardian of their laws. The same laws that had exiled her. Terror seized her throat as Kalen shifted, his powerful form condensing and reshaping until a man stood in the wolf's place. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp features softened only slightly by concern. His dark eyes scanned the cottage, and when they landed on her window, she knew he'd sensed her presence. "I mean no harm," his voice carried clearly across the clearing, deep and measured. "I'm searching for my nephew. A pup, copper-furred, went missing 4 days ago. His trail led here." Elara's blood turned to ice. Nephew. She'd saved the Wolf Prince's nephew. This couldn't be happening. Behind her, Lero whined, recognizing the voice. He scrambled to the door, scratching to get out. "No, Lero, wait!" But it was too late. The pup nosed the door open and bolted across the clearing, yipping with joy. Kalen dropped to one knee, gathering the pup into his arms with visible relief. His companions shifted as well, a stern-faced man and a beautiful woman with Kalen's same dark coloring. "Lero, thank the ancestors," the beautiful woman breathed. "Saphira has been sick with worry. Where have you been, little one?" Kalen's hands moved over the pup's body, checking for injuries. His fingers found the silver scar, and his expression shifted from relief to sharp focus. He's been healed, recently, expertly. His gaze lifted to the cottage again, and this time there was no avoiding it. "Show yourself, healer. I would thank you for saving my nephew's life." Elara's legs felt weak as she stepped out onto the porch, keeping her hood up, her head down, every survival instinct telling her to run. But there was nowhere to run to anymore. The three wolves, now all in human form, turned to face her. Recognition flickered across the woman's face first. "Elara!" Princess Saphira's voice held disbelief. "Elara of the Lumina line? But you were exiled." "Yes, I know the law, Your Highness. I know I shouldn't have used magic, but he was dying. I couldn't just let him die." Kalen's expression was unreadable as he approached with Lero, still holding him. The pup squirmed in his arms, reaching towards Elara with small paws. "You saved him. Despite the risk to yourself, despite your exile, you saved a member of my family." He stopped a few feet from her porch, and for a long moment he simply studied her face. "The council was wrong to exile you." The words hung in the air like a benediction Elara had never expected to hear. Her eyes snapped up to meet Kalen's, searching for mockery or deceit, but found only sincere gratitude and something else she couldn't name. The stern-faced man beside him, however, wore disapproval like armor. "My lord, with respect, the council's decision was made for good reason," the man said, his voice clipped. "Lumina magic is unstable. The historical records show that it saved countless lives before fear made us forget its value, Lord Corvin." Kalen's tone held authority that silenced the objection. He looked down at Lero, who was still reaching desperately for Elara, and made a decision. "May we come in? We should talk." Everything in Elara wanted to refuse, to maintain the boundary between her exile and their world, but Lero's insistent whining and Kalen's patient expression wore down her defenses. She nodded, stepping aside to let them enter her small cottage. It felt impossibly cramped with three powerful members of the royal pack inside, their presence filling every corner. Saphira moved immediately to Elara's simple table, settling gracefully into one of the chairs. "I remember you from before the exile. You healed my friend Mira's father when the fever swept through the eastern settlements. The physicians had given up, but you stayed with him for 3 days straight. He lived because of you." The memory brought both warmth and pain. "I was just doing what I was trained to do." "You were saving lives that others had declared lost," Kalen said, setting Lero down, and the pup immediately trotted to Elara, pressing against her legs. The action didn't go unnoticed. "He's bonded to you. A soul bond, unless I'm mistaken." Elara knelt, running her fingers through Lero's fur to avoid Kalen's penetrating gaze. "The healing created a connection. It will fade with time." "Or strengthen," Saphira said softly. "Soul bonds don't fade, Elara. They're permanent, which means Lero will need you, especially as he grows. The bond will pull at him if you're separated." Horror washed through her. She'd created a permanent tie to a member of the royal family, another crime to add to her list of transgressions. "I didn't know. I wasn't trying to. I just wanted him to live." Kalen crossed the room, crouching beside her so they were at eye level. Up close, she could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could smell cedar and winter wind on his skin. I know, and I'm grateful, but this complicates things. Lyro needs his pack, his family, but he also needs you now, which means I have a proposal. My lord, Corvin's protest was swift, which I will make regardless of objection, Kaelin continued, never taking his eyes off Elara. Come back to the palace, not as an exile, but as Lyro's personal healer. The bond requires proximity, and he deserves the best care. You would have chambers in the healer's wing, full access to resources, and my protection. The offer was so unexpected, so impossible, that she could only stare. The council would never allow it. They made their judgment clear 2 years ago. Lumina magic is too dangerous, too unpredictable. They said I was a threat to pack stability. The council answers to me, ultimately, and I say that a healer who saves lives at personal risk is exactly what this pack needs. We've grown comfortable, complacent. We trust only what we understand, and exile what frightens us. It's made us weaker. Saphira leaned forward. The old healer's wing has been closed for 15 years since Master Theron died. No one's had the skill or the magic to use it properly, but you could. Think of how many you could help, Elara. Think of the children like Lyro who need more than basic medicine. The temptation was a physical ache in her chest. To practice her art again, to heal without fear or hiding, to be part of a community instead of an outcast. It was everything she'd mourned losing. But the risks loomed large in her mind. What happens when the council objects? What happens when my magic does something they don't understand and fear takes over again? I won't survive another exile. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I barely survived the first one. Kaelin's hand moved slowly, giving her time to pull away, before his fingers gently tilted her chin up. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through her, warmth that had nothing to do with healing magic. Then we make sure they understand. We show them what Lumina magic truly is, not through fear and folklore, but through healing and help. Let your actions speak louder than their doubts. And if that's not enough, then I'll stand between you and anyone who tries to harm you. The promise in his voice was absolute. You saved my nephew when you had every reason to hide and protect yourself. Let me return the favor. Let me protect you while you do the work you were meant to do. Lyro chose that moment to shift into human form, a small boy with copper curls and those same golden eyes. He couldn't have been more than 5 years old, and immediately climbed into Elara's lap, wrapping small arms around her. Please come, Elara. I don't want to leave you. You make the hurt go away. The child's simple honesty shattered her remaining resistance. She looked at Lyro over Elara's head, saw the hope and determination in his expression, and felt something shift inside her. Perhaps it was time to stop hiding. Perhaps it was time to fight for her place in the world instead of accepting the exile others had imposed. I have conditions, she said finally. If you're invested in Elara's journey and want to see how she navigates palace politics and discovers her own power, drop a comment below with your predictions, and don't forget to like this video to help others find this story. Kaelin's mouth curved into a small smile. Name them. I won't be paraded as a curiosity or a trophy. I'm a healer, not a spectacle. My work in the healer's wing is mine to direct. I'll follow medical ethics and pack law, but I won't compromise my practice for politics. Agreed. If the council truly cannot accept my presence, if it threatens pack stability, I'll leave voluntarily, but I won't be exiled again. I'll leave on my own terms, with dignity. Fair, though I don't believe it will come to that. And Lyro's welfare comes first, always. If at any point the bond or my presence is harmful to him, I step back. Kaelin's expression softened. Of course, he's family. The journey to Luminara Palace took 2 days, and with each mile, Elara's anxiety grew. She rode beside Saphira, who kept up a steady stream of conversation that both distracted and informed. Colleen rode ahead with Lyro perched in front of him, the boy chattering excitedly about everything he saw. Corvin brought up the rear, his disapproval a tangible presence even at a distance. "Don't let Corvin intimidate you," Saphira said quietly as they crested a hill that revealed the palace in the valley below. "He's loyal to tradition, but he's not cruel. He'll come around once he sees what you can do." "And if he doesn't?" "Then he'll learn to live with disappointment. Colleen doesn't make declarations lightly. If he's brought you to the palace under his protection, the council will have to accept it, even if they grumble." Saphira's smile was mischievous. "Besides, my brother doesn't usually go against council wishes. The fact that he is for you says something significant." Elara didn't know how to respond to that, so she focused on the palace itself. Lumina was stunning, built of white stone that seemed to glow in the afternoon sun. Towers reached toward the sky, banners bearing the pack's wolf insignia snapping in the wind. Gardens sprawled around the structure, carefully maintained despite the late autumn chill. It was beautiful and intimidating in equal measure. The gates opened at their approach, guards saluting Colleen as they passed. Elara felt dozens of eyes on her, curious and suspicious in turns. Word of her arrival had clearly preceded them. Servants whispered as they rode into the main courtyard, and she caught fragments of conversation that made her stomach clench. The exiled one. Lumina magic. Dangerous. What was the prince thinking? Colleen dismounted smoothly, lifting Lero down before turning to help Elara. His hands were steady on her waist as he guided her to the ground, and he didn't immediately release her. "Ignore them. They'll adjust." His voice was low, meant only for her. "Give them time to see who you really are." A woman emerged from the palace entrance, her face lighting up when she saw Lero. She was lovely, with Colleen's dark coloring and Saphira's graceful bearing, but there was a warmth to her that felt immediately maternal. She swept Lero into her arms, tears streaming down her face. "My baby, my sweet boy, we thought—" She couldn't finish, just held him tighter. "Mother, I'm fine," Lero squirmed, embarrassed but pleased. "Elara saved me. She made the hurt go away with magic that glows like sunshine." The woman, Queen Saphira, Elara realized, Colleen and Saphira's mother, looked up, her gaze finding Elara. For a moment, fear flickered through her expression, but then she stood, still holding Lero, and approached. "You healed my grandson?" "Yes, Your Majesty." Elara bowed her head, uncertain of protocol. "Then you have my eternal gratitude and a permanent place in this household. Whatever you need, whatever you require to continue your work, you shall have it. Colleen did right to bring you here." Corvin cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, the council should be consulted before such promises are made, the precedent of allowing an exiled—" "The council will be informed of my decision, not consulted for permission," the Queen interrupted, her tone sharpening. "My grandson lives because of this woman's courage and skill. That is all the precedent I require." Colleen caught Elara's eye, his expression almost amused. "He told you," he seemed to say, without words. "Welcome home." The healer's wing was both better and worse than Elara had imagined. The space itself was magnificent. High ceilings, large windows that let in natural light, rooms designed specifically for various healing practices. But 15 years of neglect had taken their toll. Dust covered every surface, old supplies had deteriorated, and the magical apparatus that should have hummed with energy lay dormant and cold. "It's a lot of work," Saphira admitted, standing beside her in what had once been the main treatment room. "But the bones are good. With time and resources, you could make this functional again." Elara ran her hand over an examination table, feeling the faint residue of old magic. Master Theron was legendary, his skills in magical healing unmatched. To walk in his footsteps felt honoring and terrifying. "I'll need help. assistants who aren't afraid of the magic, who can learn, and supplies, herbs, crystals for light channeling, the proper tools. Make a list. Colleen will see it's provided. Saphira moved to one of the windows, looking out over the palace gardens. He believes in you, you know, more than he's believed in anything for a long time. Don't make him regret it. The warning was gentle but clear. Elara joined her at the window, watching as Colleen and Lero played below, the boys' laughter carrying up to them. I won't. I can't promise the council will accept me or that this will work, but I promise I'll give everything I have to helping those who need it. That's all anyone can ask. The hearing came 3 days later. Elara stood in the formal council chamber, acutely aware of her simple healer's robes among the finery of the assembled nobles. Lord Corvin sat at the head of the table with Queen Saphira, while Colleen stood to one side, technically not part of the council's deliberations, but clearly present as a witness. Corvin spoke first, his voice formal and cool. Elara of the Lumina line, you were exiled 2 years ago for the practice of dangerous and unpredictable magic. The council's decision was unanimous. Yet here you stand, brought back by Prince Colleen after using that same magic. Explain yourself. Elara took a breath, steadying her nerves. I found a dying pup in my forest. I recognized that without immediate and skilled intervention, it would not survive. I made a choice to save a life rather than hide behind fear. That choice resulted in a soul bond, which now ties me to your young prince, Lero. I'm here because that bond requires proximity, and because I believe I can offer skills that this palace needs. The historical records show that Lumina magic has caused unintended consequences, bonds that became obsessive, healings that went too far and changed fundamental natures. How can we trust that your magic won't cause harm? I can't, another member answered. Not absolutely. Magic, any magic, carries risk. So does childbirth, so does battle, so does the simple act of living. Lumina magic is powerful, yes, and it requires wisdom and restraint, but it's also saved countless lives that no other healing could reach. Master Theron practiced for 40 years without catastrophic incident. His records are all here, in this palace. I've studied them, learned from them. I know the risks and I know how to minimize them. Kaelin stepped forward, commanding immediate attention. The council exiled Elara based on fear, not evidence of actual harm. In the 2 years since, has there been any report of her causing damage or injury? Has anyone come forward with claims of suffering from her magic? Silence answered him. Corvin's jaw tightened. The absence of reports doesn't prove safety. She was in exile, isolated from the pack. Exactly. She was alone, prevented from helping anyone. Her gifts wasted because we were too afraid to understand them. Kaelin's voice grew passionate. We pride ourselves on being wise, on making decisions based on reason and tradition. But what tradition supports wasting a gift that could save lives? What wisdom is there in choosing fear over evidence? Queen Saphira spoke for the first time. Lord Corvin, you're a father. If your son were dying and Elara's magic was the only thing that could save him, would you refuse her help? The question hung heavy in the air. Corvin's expression flickered, emotion breaking through his stern facade. That's not a fair question, Your Majesty. It's the only question that matters. We make laws to protect our people, not to doom them through cowardice. The Queen's voice softened. Elara saved my grandson when she had every reason to protect herself and stay hidden. That speaks to character, to compassion. Isn't that what we should value in our healers? Lady Maris leaned forward, studying Elara with shrewd eyes. If we allow you to practice, will you submit to oversight, regular reviews of your work, documentation of your methods? Of course, Elara agreed immediately. Transparency benefits everyone. I want people to understand Lumina magic, not fear it. I'm willing to teach, to explain, to demonstrate. The more people understand, the safer everyone becomes. The council members exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. Finally, Corvin spoke. A trial period. 6 months. You may practice in the healer's wing under supervision. Your methods will be documented and reviewed monthly. If there are any incidents, any signs of instability or danger, the exile will be reinstated immediately. It wasn't acceptance, but it was opportunity. Elara bowed her head. Thank you, council members. I won't disappoint you. See that you don't, Corvin said, but his tone had lost some of his edge. The weeks that followed were exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. Elara threw herself into restoring the healer's wing, working from dawn until well past dark. Sapphira helped recruit assistants, young healers curious about magical methods and willing to learn. Supplies arrived daily, everything Elara had requested and more. Lero became her constant companion when he wasn't with his tutors. The boy had a natural affinity for healing magic, his small hands glowing with faint light when Elara taught him basic techniques. The soul bond between them had indeed strengthened, a warm presence in her chest that she'd grown to cherish. Kaelin visited daily, ostensibly to check on Lero, but increasingly to speak with Elara herself. They talked while she organized supplies, debated magical theory over meals, walked in the gardens as the sun set. He was intelligent and thoughtful, challenging her assumptions while respecting her expertise, and somewhere in those conversations, something shifted between them. It happened gradually, like spring arriving after a long winter. The way his eyes sought hers across a room, the warmth of his hand on her shoulder when he praised her work, the late evenings when Lero had fallen asleep and they continued talking, sharing stories of their pasts, their hopes for the future. The chemistry built with each interaction, tension that was both thrilling and terrifying. One evening, 6 weeks after her arrival, Kaelin found her in the main treatment room. She'd been working on a patient with chronic pain, using Lumina magic to address nerve damage that conventional medicine couldn't touch. The healing had gone well, the patient leaving with tears of gratitude and the first pain-free movement in years. "You're extraordinary," Kaelin said from the doorway, making her jump. "I've watched you work, seen how you handle each patient with such care and precision. The council's monthly review is tomorrow. They're going to have no choice but to acknowledge your success." Elara cleaned her hands, suddenly nervous. 43 patients treated, all successful outcomes, full documentation provided. I've done everything they asked. And more. He crossed the room, and she found herself backed against the examination table, his presence overwhelming in the best way possible. "Elara, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen before you respond." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "All right. I brought you here for Lero, that was true, but somewhere in these weeks, watching you build something beautiful from ruins, seeing your compassion and strength, I've fallen for you." His hand lifted, cupping her cheek with infinite gentleness. "I know the complications this creates. I know the council will have opinions, that there are political considerations, but I need you to know how I feel. I need you to know that you're not just Lero's healer to me. You're so much more." The confession stole her breath. She'd felt the pull between them, had tried to convince herself it was gratitude or friendship or the intensity of their circumstances. But hearing him voice it, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, she couldn't deny her own feelings any longer. "I feel it too. I tried not to. I thought it would complicate everything, make my position here more tenuous. But Kaelin, when I'm with you, I feel like I've finally come home, like all the exile and pain led me exactly where I was meant to be." He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. When their lips met, it was gentle and perfect, a promise of something real and lasting. The kiss deepened, her hands sisting in his shirt as his arms wrapped around her, holding her close. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, his forehead rested against hers. "I love you," he said simply, "and I want everyone to know it. I want to make this official, make you not just the palace healer, but my partner in every way. Will you marry me, Elara? Will you let me spend my life supporting your work and cherishing your heart?" Tears spilled over her as she nodded, laughing and crying simultaneously. Yes, 1,000 times yes. The kiss they shared was witnessed by the entire celebration below, cheers erupting as Kaelin lifted her off her feet and spun her around. When he set her down, Lero came barreling through the balcony doors, Sapphira right behind him. "Are you going to be my aunt now?" the boy demanded, his face alight with excitement. "I suppose I am," Elara laughed, kneeling to hug him tight. The soul bond between them hummed with contentment, a reflection of the joy filling her heart. Later, as the celebration wound down and guests began to depart, Elara stood once more in the healer's wing. The space glowed with warm light, every surface clean and organized, magical instruments humming with gentle energy. It was everything she dreamed of creating, a place of healing and hope, where gifts were celebrated instead of feared. Kaelin found her there, slipping his arms around her from behind. "What are you thinking?" "That exile brought me here, that all the pain and loneliness led to this moment, this life, this love." She turned in his embrace, her hands resting over his heart. "That sometimes the darkest periods teach us to appreciate the light." "And sometimes," he murmured, "the light was there all along, waiting for us to be brave enough to reach for it." Their future stretched before them, full of promise and purpose. Elara would continue healing, expanding her practice and training the next generation. Kaelin would rule with wisdom and compassion, challenging outdated fears and embracing progress. Together, they would build something beautiful, a life founded on trust, courage, and love.